Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. I'm in D.C. Buck is in Miami. I am joined now by Mary Margaret Olohan, who just had her book release party in Washington, D.C. The book is Detrans, True Stories of Escaping the Gender Ideology Cult. My friend Riley Gaines, who works with me at Outkick, is on the cover giving you a blurb. She says you are awesome, so that is a good endorsement so far as I'm concerned. Okay, we're going to get to the book in a moment. I encourage you to all go read it. But I want to start with, we were talking off air. You are one of 11 children.
Yes, I
You
am.
are. Is it the second oldest?
Second oldest daughter, so I like to think of myself as the boss.
All right, so I think the ages are 30 to 11.
Yes.
Same mom and dad.
Same mom and dad.
Buck is one of 4, and he's like, in New York City, that's considered crazy. What was it like to grow up as one of 11 children?
Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. It was just always, we were always having a party. Just cleaning the kitchen after dinner, which we all did, by the way. I think people think it's probably really hard to have 11 kids, but the kids do the chores, so I don't think it's that bad.
That's what they did on the farms, and you're homeschooled, too.
Yeah, we were homeschooled, and I'm so grateful to my mom for homeschooling us. She taught me how to read when I was really little, so now extra kudos to her that I wrote a book because I think that I would attribute that in large part to my homeschool education. But it was so much fun. Christmas was so much fun. Always a party. We would literally, turn on dance music when we were cleaning the kitchen, and all the little kids are like, it's like having all these cousins around all the time, I think is what most people would compare it to. It's a blast.
Well, that all sounds like a lot of fun. I feel like there's no.
And you want to have
great.
like 10 kids yourself now, too.
I do. I would love to.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to make this transition into your book from there, from all the happiness and joy of a large and loving family into some of this. So I'm just going to steer off the highway here and take us into this. So the book, Detrans, True Stories of Escaping the Gender Ideology Cult. I've got my copy here, holding it up for our VIPs so they can see. So in this, you're not, it's not that you're in the role of expert, because this is what they always try to undermine anyone who talks about this. Are you an expert? You've even seen this, I'm sure, Mary Margaret. Well, we'll say, I can't tell if that's a boy or a girl. I'm not a biologist. This kind of became a meme for a while. But you're reporting on the stories of people who went through this themselves. In that reporting, what did you find that everyone needs to know about?
Yeah, so these are the real reported stories of detransitioners, which are people, and in this book, young people who tried to do what we would say is unthinkable to change their gender. So for many of these people, and let's just say the girls, they're teenagers, they're going on social media, and they're seeing all these representations of masculinity and femininity that are really confusing them, because we know our culture is struggling so much with that nowadays anyways. It's toxic masculinity or toxic femininity. There's no happy, normal, healthy in between. And so a lot of these girls told me that they're on social media, they're seeing all these beautiful women online and thinking, I don't look anything like that. These perfectly sculpted, sexy women who get all kinds of male affirmation. And these are 12 and 13-year-old girls who think, I don't look anything like that. And then some of these girls told me they would then, they're being exposed to pornography online, and they're thinking, okay, this is really humiliating and degrading for a lot of women. I'm scared of that. And then they're being told by gender activists, oh, you feel like you don't like these things? You don't like how womanhood is portrayed? It's because you're not a girl. It's because you're a guy. And that's a weird fact pattern that I found with a lot of these girls, and I was surprised by, because I think a lot of the time we hear, oh, they were exposed to a lot of gender content online. That's not the whole picture. It's a whole confusing cocktail of social media that a lot of these girls are being subjected to. And so, from that point on, what happens is these girls say, okay, I think I'm a guy. They start talking to therapists. Their parents might take them to a therapist. And the therapist will tell these girls and their parents, oh, yeah, you are a boy, first of all. And to the parents, if you don't affirm your transgender identity, she's going to hurt herself or kill herself. And the exact line that they give them is, would you rather have a dead daughter or a living son? And actually, I've said that so many times now, but every time I say it, it gives me chills.
It's chilling.
Because it's a threat to the parents that saying, if you do not comply with our ideology, your kid will kill themselves and it'll be your fault. And so these parents love their kids. They want to do what's best for them. They don't really know better. Maybe they're not super politically in tune. They're not equipped with the resources. So they think, okay, well, the therapists and doctors are telling me this is best for my kid. I'm going to do it. And unfortunately, a lot of these parents should have gone with their gut, because In a lot of these cases, the parents' initial reaction was right. Their kids should not have done this. And unfortunately, what they'll do is they'll get the kids started on, let's say, puberty blockers if they're really young. That just stops your puberty. It's very, it makes a lot of sense. It's a puberty blocker. But what we don't realize is we don't actually know the full effects of what these puberty blockers are doing to these kids. And I'm not just saying that. The so-called experts, like the WPATH doctors who just got exposed for knowing that these things were experimental and hiding it, it came out recently that they knew that puberty blockers and testosterone were causing tumors in girls. They knew that puberty blockers and testosterone were making girls infertile, and they just kind of didn't say anything because it doesn't fit the narrative. And so all of these things are experimental, but they're putting kids on them. And then after the puberty blockers, they'll put them on testosterone if they're a girl or estrogen if they're a guy. And oh my gosh, I could talk all day about the effects of these things. We think about surgeries because they're really gruesome and horrible, but the hormones, they change your muscles, they change your bone structure, they change where your fat distributes on your body. You lose hair, you gain hair. The emotional effects were freaky to me. Some of these girls told me, first of all, they lost the ability to cry. So they would feel this intense emotional urge to cry, and then just nothing would happen. So they couldn't even find the relief that comes with crying. And for some of them, they lost the ability to scream, which as a woman, I don't know if men experience this. As a woman, I feel like a very common dream is you're running away from someone, you're trying to scream, and you can't. Well, that's their reality now. That's their life. So many other physical and emotional side effects. And then once they've been on the testosterone for a while, which also causes rage attacks, really scary for the girls, where they just, they feel this really intense rage that they have to externalize. One girl told me she was covered in bruises because she would just punch things all the time trying to externalize this rage. So after they've been on that for a while, the doctors will tell them, oh, you don't feel better? It's because you need to get your next step, the surgery. And that is a double mastectomy. And a lot of girls will do this. A bunch of the girls in my book did this. They removed their breasts forever. And what's so sad about this and crazy about this is they're so naive in some of these cases that some of these girls think their breasts will grow back. They're so lacking in informed consent that they don't have any understanding of basic human biology and think, oh, maybe they'll grow back eventually.
We're talking about the book Detrans, the true stories of escaping the gender ideology cult. Mary Margaret Olohan is the author. When you see, for instance, state of Florida, this is a big story right now.
Yeah.
State of Florida says that a judge in the state of Florida says that the state shouldn't be able to say, hey, teenagers shouldn't have these kinds of surgeries, and that they should be permitted. Almost no one is telling the story of kids who are teenagers and decide to transition and then think, hey, I was just a teenager. I made a bad choice. I want to go back. Why is that? And what do these people tell you that you think it's important for other people out there with teenagers to know?
Yeah, the reason they're not telling us these stories is because they don't fit the narrative. Every major institution in our country right now is pushing the gender ideology narrative. If you look at how mainstream media talks about this, and even how they're talking about the Florida decision right now, they'll say that a Florida judge blocked the anti-trans law, or this law banning medical care for trans youth. That is propaganda language. That's euphemistic language. What we're talking about here is transgender surgeries, hormones, and puberty blockers. But you will never see that spelled out in a headline from one of these outlets because they've been told by GLAAD, by the HRC, by the ACLU, don't use that language because it's offensive to trans people. Why is it offensive to trans people? Because it's too articulate. You're giving people information that's going to make them vote a certain way because most Americans don't support this stuff. So I personally absolutely have a bee in my bonnet for the way the mainstream media covers this issue. And I think that they're doing themselves a huge disservice by not just being plain with us about the realities of this situation. These stories that I'm telling in my book deserve to be heard. These are young people who suffered excruciating pain mentally and physically. They needed help. They were not given it. And instead they were pushed down this path. And now that they're speaking out and saying, I deeply regret this, no one cares. These doctors that push them down this path, the activists that push them down this path, the media figures who tout trans kids or trans youth, they don't care. It doesn't fit the narrative. And so the young people I talked to for this book told me, we exist. We want people to hear our stories. We don't want them to just pity us. We want them to look at our stories and say, okay, we shouldn't be fast-tracking kids down these gender transitions, and we should be allowing for multiple perspectives on this, because if you are like this judge in Florida and you're going to say, oh, this law is coming from a anti-trans perspective, maybe you need to pay a little more attention to the picture at large. This is a very serious issue. It's not anti-trans to care about kids, and we should be paying more attention to it.
What are when you look into this, Mary Margaret, and again, the book is Detrans, True Stories of Escaping the Gender Ideology Cult. Medical professionals, there must be some who recognize how damaging this is, and the cost to children. Are there more of them who are willing to speak out? Are they afraid they're going to go after their licenses? And we saw a lot of that during COVID, for example.
Yeah.
Where's the medical community on this right now?
So I would say that in general, we're seeing a lot of cowardice on this front. So many of these doctors and medical professionals have just remained silent. And you know what? I get it, and to a certain extent, because they do have their jobs to keep in mind. Yes, you will be canceled for speaking out on this. But there is hope in this area. Just this week, I believe it was actually last week, I reported exclusively at the Daily Signal on this declaration that all of these doctors and nurses put out, saying we are so far behind Europe on this. Europe is taking steps to protect kids. United States medical groups need to get it together and pay attention to the fact that these procedures are harming children. And incredibly, this is a declaration that this group of doctors and nurses put together. Elon Musk was promoting it on Twitter, and the last time I looked, I think it had something like 59 million views, which is insane. So that was exciting to me. And then also, there's this doctor in Texas. His name is Dr. Etan Heim, and he is a whistleblower from a Texas hospital. And this story has not gotten enough attention. This is crazy. He's a whistleblower from a Texas hospital who started speaking out and saying, this hospital is transing children, and this is my experience knowing about it. And the DOJ is now coming after him. He's facing prison time for speaking out about this hospital. Etan Heim is his name. I think that when we look back on this era, hopefully when we look back on this era, he will be one of the figures that stands out as one of the people who put his body on the line and said, no, I'm not going to stay silent here. And he's being persecuted for it. But we do have some figures that are standing up for kids in this area. And I feel like I probably sound dramatic saying we're standing up for kids in this area, but that's really what Dr. Etan Heim and others are doing when they're saying, I'm not going to remain quiet. We are performing experimental and dangerous procedures on kids and then calling it care. Even the White House is calling it care. The White House put out messaging saying that so-called gender-affirming care is crucial. They literally use that word for the health of trans youth. And I like to be a little bit annoying about this. What they're saying there is transgender surgeries, hormones, and puberty blockers are crucial for the health of trans youth. Well, first of all, we know that's not true. It's a lie. We're finding more and more recently that these types of things actually are detrimental to the mental health of kids. Who would have thought? But that's coming from the White House. It's coming from Hollywood. It's coming from corporations. It's coming from our media. And so I'm thankful to doctors like Dr. Etan Heim and to these doctors. I believe it's the American Academy of Pediatrics. Something I'm messing that up.
Pediatricians, they just said this is wrong, right?
Yeah.
That under 18s, you shouldn't be getting this.
Exactly. And you know what? That's amazing that they said that. But also, it seems very obvious, right? But they had this declaration. I encourage everyone to read the whole thing. Super interesting. They lay out all the statistics. They lay out why we're behind Europe on this, why Europe has been taking steps to curtail this in European countries and to protect kids, and how the United States is honestly backwards when it comes to protecting our kids like this.
The book, Detrans, True Stories of Escaping the Gender Ideology Cult. We encourage you to go check it out. Make sure that you read it, share it, and understand it, particularly if you have teenage kids and their friends that you might be dealing with some of these issues. Mary Margaret Olohan, one of 11. Are you the only author of the 11 so far?
Oh, so far, but you never know.
Your mom and dad's favorite then. Thank you for hanging out with us. Want to tell you, you can switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk. You'll be saving $50 or $60 a month without sacrificing any quality. Pure Talk provides the same quality of 5G nationwide cell phone service that AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile provide at a fraction of the price, and they're able to do it because they don't have retail stores or pricey marketing campaigns. Pure Talk also supports many of the same causes we do, including those that support our veterans like America's Warrior Partnership. They've helped more than 60,000 veterans in the past 20 years, provide access to housing, food, employment, and more. Switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk by this Friday, Flag Day. You'll be helping to support America's Warrior Partnership. Plans from just $20 a month on a nationwide 5G network. No brainer. Dial pound 250, say Clay and Buck. Pure Talk's U.S. customer service team will help you make the switch. That's down. Dial pound 250, say Clay and Buck today.